I will fight to the end. Doesn't matter what the world means against me. I will fight.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, our weekly call-in town hall and radio show. And Merry Christmas to all of you. I hope you all had a good Christmas and happy holidays. Coming up, we still have one more big holiday ahead with the new year. I am so excited about this upcoming year. Lot of hope out there. I really want to begin each week by thanking WNTW 820 AM The Answer for the opportunity to provide this free public service to you each week. I'm Senator Amanda Chase, and I'm your weekly radio show host. I also serve as your state senator in the 11th Senatorial District, which includes all of Amelia, all of Colonial Heights, and actually most of Chesterfield, which is where I'm from. I live in Chesterfield. My office is in Richmond, not D.C., by the way, where I meet with constituents in our district every Tuesday and Thursday while we're out of session. And January 11th, we go back to Richmond. We are back in session. I'm in my office 5 days a week. And if you'd like to schedule a visit, I love meeting with constituents. Julianne is my aide, and you can just go to our website, chaseforsenate.com. My contact information is there with information about how to reach me. So, many of the topics that we have addressed on our show are issues that constituents have brought to my attention. I've really tried hard to make a point of staying in touch with you, my constituents. And I hope you've enjoyed this weekly town hall and radio show. And if you have a question about today's topic, I do invite you to call in. You can take down that number. It's 804-454-1366. And we're going to do our best to answer your question on the show. And I'm really hoping that today we get lots of people calling in today so that I can get your feedback on my 2017 legislative package that I'm kind of put together. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 2017 legislative session, different things that I'm going to be doing, different bills that I've introduced. And I'd love to hear you. So call in. I'd love to get your perspective on it. Just so you know, I have 4 committee assignments. I sit on health and education, transportation, local governments, and privileges and elections. Those are the 4 major committees. I also serve on 2 subcommittees. I sit on a certificate of public need committee and a higher education subcommittee. So those are my committees, but I also sit on 4 commissions. One is called Economic Opportunity for Virginians and Aspiring and Diverse Communities, and I'm the vice chair of that. I sit on block grants, Virginia Commission on Intergovernmental Cooperation, and finally, civics education. Now, the first week that I was in office, I co-founded a transparency caucus with Delegate Mark Levine, and so our goal with that committee is to make it a little bit more user-friendly for you, our constituents. So most of you are working and you don't have time to go down to the General Assembly in Richmond, but what we would like to happen is that you can actually go online someday and look and see what transpired in subcommittees and committees before they go before the floor of the House or the Senate. And so what we do as a part of that Transparency Caucus is we have members of our staff to go in and video the proceedings of each bill that we introduce and present. And you get to see that. If you're friends with me on Facebook or you like my Senate page, you'll actually get to see that. And that's on my Chase for Senate website as well. And Mark has that on his as well. Delegate Levine has that on his as well. And we have quite a few members. It's growing. Delegate Pogge has added to that membership amongst other people. So encourage your legislator to be a part of the Transparency Caucus. So when does session begin and what is it? So session begins the second Wednesday of every January. And this year, Wednesday is January the 11th. We have our first session at noon. And the last day of session is Saturday, February the 25th. So it's a short session this year, 45 days, and it's pretty much 45 straight days. I usually arrive in Richmond around 7:15 in the morning, and I don't head back across the river until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night, just getting ready for the next day. It's pretty intense. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the bills that I'll be the chief patron on. And most of these bills are ideas that came from you, my constituents, and ideas that came to me as I take a look at the economy. And by the way, I really want to say thank you to those of you who filled out our online survey, just trying to get input from constituents. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about those bills today. The first bill, I think what I'm going to do is just kind of give you all like a summary of all the bills. I mean, there's quite a few. I've got 9 bills that I've already introduced, and I've got a couple of other ones that are in the works that are going to be submitted. Let's talk about the first one. The first one is a term limits bill. And basically, it's the same one that I introduced last year. It's a constitutional amendment, and I want to thank Senator Sturdivant for co-patroning this term limit bill with me on the Senate side. And so what is this bill? This bill basically would give 12 years in each house. It would still allow for up to 6 terms in the House. You know, we have 2-year terms in the House and 3 4-year terms in the Senate. It can be consecutive or non-consecutive, but it would make it easier for new faces and perspectives to run. Incumbents become more and more entrenched the longer they're in, making it harder to defeat them. And, you know, I can tell you, my experience in working for other legislators behind the scenes is that we do need to have some experience in the legislature. We don't want to empower the bureaucracy, and that's a lot of times what I hear is, Amanda, I don't like this bill because we're empowering the bureaucracy. We can't have term limits. But I say, actually, let's think about that for a minute. If we're doing our job, training up new leadership while we're still in office, there will always be someone there to take our place. I didn't just come up off the street and say, hey, I'm going to run for office. I worked behind the scenes for about 10 years. And kind of figured out how things work, so that developed those relationships with people so that I understood how things work when I got there. So we do need people to rotate in and rotate out. I love what Scott Lee says about having, going to your mailbox and getting a notice saying, oh no, I have jury duty. Well, oh no, I have to serve Congress, or oh no, I have to serve as a legislator this month. I kind of agree along that sentiment. And I think, in my going door to door when I was campaigning, that is really a lot of what I heard from folks, is that they really did want to get away from career politicians and go more in the direction of citizen-led legislature. And I can tell you, honestly, it is full-time work. I mean, it's hard if you're doing a good job and you're working hard and meeting with constituents. I mean, it is nonstop, 365 days a year. You have to love people, and you have to be a servant leader, and you have to like that kind of thing, which I love, and it's an honor and a privilege to serve. But I do feel like term limits is very important, and also is training up new leadership, so that we can have people in there that so that we do protect and understand, exactly how the mechanics of the General Assembly work, so that the bureaucracy is not empowered. So that is SJ 224, in case you're wondering, my term limits bill. SJ 225 is a governor's residency requirement. And that bill increases from 5 to 8 years. How many years, if you're going to run for governor, for instance, you would have to live in Virginia for a total of 8 years, which would mean you've sat through or lived through 2 administrations before you can become governor. I just think we need to have governors who are fully invested in Virginia, have some skin in the game, kind of been here for a while, understand how things work. We don't want someone, and I'm not going to mention any names, but, people moving from other states and, moving to Virginia, or moving to New York or some other place, where they haven't been a resident. I just think we need to have more skin in the game in that. So I hope you like that bill. Senate Bill 791, we're going to talk a little bit more when we get back from the break in regards to firearms. And this is one that I introduced last year, and it is basically an optional waive of concealed carry permit fee for handguns. and the county jurisdiction has the option to waive the fee. It's make it so it's not required. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today when we come back from the break in about 30 seconds. We're going to come back to that one because it's pretty extensive, and I want to talk to you about concealed handgun permits in Virginia, and I've got some interesting facts for you there. Where most of the legislation that you're going to see from me this year is going to have to do with some of the committees that I serve on. We had a number of issues that came up that were discovered during the election, so we're going to talk about that when we come back. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 4 minutes. We're back with Cut to the Chase with Senator Amanda Chase, our weekly call-in town hall and radio show on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. I'm going to give you that phone number again. It's 804-454-1366, and we're discussing 2017's legislative agenda that I'm actually putting in, bills that I'm putting in as the chief co-patron of this coming session, and we've already discussed the term limits, the governor's residency requirement bill, and we were on firearms discretionary fee for concealed handgun permits. That's Senate Bill 791. And I'm going to try to briefly, I'm going to want to go in all the detail on these bills, but I'm going to try to just be brief and just give them all to you. Otherwise, if I get in the weeds too much, I might not get to talk about all of them, and then we'll circle back around and go into each of them in a little more detail. But this one has to do with anytime you want to, let's say you buy a handgun, but in addition to paying for your handgun, you've also got to get a concealed carry permit if you decide that you want to put your handgun in your purse. You don't want to, some people just, you don't want to attract unnecessary attention to yourself. Some people like myself, you don't want all that attention, but you want to protect yourself in the case of an emergency. So right now, as it stands, there's $50 that you have to pay in order to get that concealed carry permit. So the question is, should you have to pay a fee to exercise your Second Amendment right? Well, I wish that we didn't have to pay that, to be honest with you, but the bill I'm reintroducing would give your local clerk of the circuit court the ability to unilaterally waive the $10 portion of the fee. So it gives the clerk of the circuit court the ability to charge that fee for everybody in their county or not. Now, while I wish I would absolutely love to waive the entire fee, bills are won and lost on something called a fiscal impact statement. In other words, how much revenue will be lost as a result of this bill. Many times, the lesser the fiscal or financial impact, the better the chance you have of passing that bill. So that's kind of why I went toward the $10 portion of the bill. It's broken down, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But any financial impact that will affect the state budget would have to be reflected in something called a budget amendment because we're amending the budget. So this bill, while only $10, is a step in the right direction. The actual bill, the actual law is Section 18.2, and I know y'all don't care to hear about the number of the section of the bill, but here's the breakdown. Here's the cut to the chase. The court charges a fee of $10. That's the clerk of the circuit court for processing of the application and issuing the permit. The $35 that makes, in that $50 total charge, $10 goes toward the court, the clerk at the circuit court. $35 goes toward the local law enforcement agencies for the cost of conducting an investigation pursuant to this particular code section. And then the state police can charge they can charge a $5 fee associated with processing the application, but the total charges cannot exceed $50. So of that, the 10 plus the 35 plus the 5, we get $50. I'm looking at shipping away that $10 for localities in which you have a really nice clerk of the circuit court, and they're willing to waive that fee for you. So I'm trying to get it down for you. We're starting somewhere. If we tried to waive the entire thing, there would be a huge fiscal impact statement, and they would immediately shoot my bill down. So we got to have a little strategy going on here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the next bill, Senate Bill 835. This my hope with this bill is to reduce the corporate income tax in Virginia, which is currently at 6%, down to 2.5%. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, "Wow, that's going to be a huge fiscal impact statement on that one." Well, yes, it is, but we have a problem right now, or we have a challenge right now. North Carolina is at 3%, and next year they go down to 2.5%. So, if you're a corporation, let's say, and you're outside of Virginia and you're looking to relocate, because one of the biggest things that a corporation looks at is the cost of doing business. If you're looking at Virginia and they're charging a 6% corporate income tax, and you look at North Carolina and they're at 2.5%, this is a no-brainer. Which state are you going to go to? If you said North Carolina, you probably said the right answer. And so that's a problem right now. And I, although I would love to gradually phase that out, I don't think it's really going to help us out unless we actually, we're going to have to rely on the growth from getting the additional corporations to come to Virginia, and that'll take time. But if we don't at least equal to what North Carolina is, next year they'll be at 3%. I want to go at 2.5% because I think it's aggressive, and it's something that we need to do to bring corporations here. Now, you say, why do you want to bring corporations here? Well, once again, I think this is a no-brainer. We need more jobs in Virginia. A lot of jobs are going to North Carolina, and I have 4 teenage kids. One that's graduating in a year. This time next year, she'll be graduating, and a lot of kids are moving to North Carolina, South Carolina, and other places. They're moving away from us. We're having attrition. So I want to keep my kids here in Virginia. So we need some jobs. We need some corporations here for those people that maybe don't want to have their own business. But so that would make us competitive with North Carolina. A similar state with lower corporate income tax rate would allow corporations to have greater flexibility to expand and hire more employees with unemployment rates still at unacceptable levels. And I have this in my notes over here. Just some interesting facts for you that have to do with some of the Forbes and CNBC have some interesting results. Right now, we're ranked number 6 by Forbes, and we're ranked number 13 by CNBC's poll. And what a lot of these groups do is they take a look at job growth. They take a look. They look at the cost of doing business. They look at business costs, labor supply, the regulatory environment, the economic climate, growth prospects, and quality of life. All these things are taken into account. So a scorecard on state economic climate might measure things like the workforce, the cost of doing business, infrastructure, quality of life, technology and innovation, education. I think we're doing really well there because we have so many colleges and universities here in Virginia. Business friendliness, cost of living, access to capital, all these different things they're looking at and we're getting ranked at. And Virginia used to be number 1, but we fall in quite a bit. And a lot of that, as many have said, has to do with sequestration, which is, the federal government has given us money for our military, and a lot of our military folks are right here in Virginia. We're one of the number 1 employers for military here in Virginia. With sequestration and federal cuts, that hurts us. So we've got to figure out a way to have additional revenues. So that's what we're thinking there. So let's lower the corporate income tax. Let's bring those jobs back to Virginia. And when we come back from the break, we've got about 30 seconds before we get to the next break. But I just think it's interesting. The median household income in Virginia is $66,262. And that's for a population. Did you know that we have about 8.4 million Virginians right now as of November 2016? And right now our job growth is at 2%. I know y'all wanted to know that. Stay tuned. And we come back, we're going to talk about electors for vice president and president, several other bills that I'm going to introduce next session. Stay tuned.
I will fight to the end. Doesn't matter what the world brings against me. I will
This is Cut to the Chase with Senator Amanda Chase, our weekly call-in town hall and radio show on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. We're talking about legislation that I'm introducing this coming session 2017, and I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your input. 804-454-1366. Give us a call, and I would love to take your call on the phone. We've already talked about the term limits bill, the governor's residency requirement, discretionary fee, waiving that fee for concealed handgun permit. We talked about lowering the corporate income tax and reducing it to 2.5%. And now the next one we're going to talk about is my effort to reform the B-poll tax, which is an onerous tax if you're a business owner. And my husband and I have owned a number of businesses over the years. Right now, my boys just started, since I've been in office, a grass cutting business, which is actually doing really well. But we understand so what does B-poll stand for? B-poll stands for the Business, Professional, and Occupational License Tax. It is a local option tax on what they call the privilege of doing business within a locality. It's evolved over time from a state license tax to a local license fee or a gross receipts tax. Now, some of you are saying, what exactly is gross receipts? Gross receipts means the whole entire total receipts of money or other consideration received by the taxpayer as a result of transactions with others beside himself and which are derived from the exercise of the license privilege to engage in a business or profession. Let me just cut to the chase for you. This is how much money you're taking in. This is like your sales. Does not take into account how much profit you make. So let's just say you have large ticket items. And so you have high gross receipts, but let's say your profit margin is really low. In fact, so low that your expenses outweigh, your expenses outweigh your gross receipts. So are you doing very well financially? No, you're not doing very well, but you're still going to have to pay this B-poll tax. So I just think there's a better way to do this. I understand the localities, a lot of them would rather not see me introduce this bill, but I think it's important that we take a look at this bill, as many others have done before me. And, we need to take a look at what we can do to help our small business owners, and waiving this tax would be good. I have a caller, John from Midlothian. And are you there, John?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for listening today.
I'm happy to do it. Hey, what are other states' requirements on residency before they can run for governor? Do you have any idea?
I think there are 5 to 10 other states. I'm looking at my aide here. Let me see if she knows the answer. 5 to 10 years is average for to answer your question. So there's a list out there that's, if you do a Google search, I'm sure you could probably pull that out real quick. I don't have that information right at my fingertips, but I can get the information for you and get back to you if you don't mind holding.
I was just asking. No, I'm all for that.
Okay, yeah, I just think it shows, people need to be vested if they're going to, run our state. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
You support that bill?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. What about term limits? Do you support term limits?
Yeah, if you can get them through.
Well,
It's
I'm
just-
actually building support right now. We are garnering support. I have Senator Sturdivant, who is supporting this bill with me, so I want to give a special shout out to him today. And I would encourage you all to contact your legislator. I know that there are some other members in the House that are supporting this bill as well. But I really, John, want to thank you for your call and for calling in today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. It's awesome. I love it when you all call in. And I'm going to give you that number one more time. It's 804-454-1366. So I want to go back to the B-poll tax. And I was giving you a brief history of the B-poll tax and gross receipts. And I just feel like that we're penalizing businesses that may not be making any money at all. That's my biggest concern right now. And if we're going to do things to encourage small business owners to stay in business, then in my mind, we just need to take a look at how we recalculate, the B-poll tax. I don't want it to hurt the localities, and I get that. but we do need to look at how we're calculating the B poll tax. And I'm open to suggestions. And like I said, this bill is a conversation starter. It's allowing these conversations. I just had a phone call today with the Commissioner of Revenue, Joe Horrible, who is retiring tomorrow, by the way, and getting his thoughts on this bill. And so I welcome your feedback. Call me. This is just to start that conversation, and something that I think that we owe to the small business owners of Virginia. Virginia is one of the few states that has this B poll tax. I really do think we need to take a look at it. All right, we're going to be back in 4 minutes. We're going to finish talking about, we have so many other bills that have to do with elections. So I really want to tune in. Stay tuned. 4 minutes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase, and I have Dave from Colonial Heights. Are you there, Dave?
Yes, thank you for taking my call, Senator.
Well, I appreciate you calling in. I understand you had a question about B-poll. I hope I can answer your question for you.
No, I am against the B poll tax. I would like to see it disappear. Also, as a small business owner, one of the most rigorous things we have to deal with is when we work in different counties from the county we live in, or our businesses in. If we do work over $25,000, we have to get a business license in that county, and the tax is not the problem; it's the additional paperwork that's so tough for the businesses to do. And I would love to see something done with that also.
You know, Dave, I can completely relate to you. And in fact, I won't go into detail about it, but I had a similar situation. You know, my husband and I have a financial services business, and I actually was helping someone in Texas to set up a business and, you know, getting them introduced. But you have to have a license. If I go to Texas or another state, I have to go through, like you said, the paperwork. So rather than fool with all that, I just, you know, gave her the advice free and said, good luck, you know, but I could have made money off that. So I know exactly what you're saying. It's a headache and a nightmare, just the amount of paperwork. And that's a really good point. I'm making a note of that right now. And I'm going to ask my assistant here, Sarah, to get your contact information, your name and your phone number and your email address. And we'd love to follow up with you after the show and get your thoughts, especially from business owner perspective. Would that be good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And stay tuned because I have another bill I'm introducing, Senate Bill 849, which would basically waive, it's an individual income tax that would be waived for 5 years if you're a small business owner making less than $100,000 profit. This would waive your individual income tax. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I understand exactly what you're going through. So, Dave, thanks so much for your call. And Sarah's going to get your information and your contact so we can follow back up with you. You know, my husband and I have had a number of businesses over the years. And I mentioned earlier, while I've been in office, I've got 3 teenage boys, and my husband started a grass cutting business with them. And so my boys are understanding, you know, licensing, and we had insurance put on each of them and all those types of things that you do with a real business. And they're all excited because they got their first official trailer with their logo on it and everything. Some people don't really realize how expensive it is to be in business for yourself. And I can't tell you the number of business owners I talk to that, you know, are just thankful that they can make any profit at all. Because a lot of times the first 5 years, you're just breaking even, you know. So thanks so much to Dave from Colonial Heights. So that just shows, see, one more small business owner supporting me reforming this B poll tax. So I'm going to move on to election law. Now, if y'all remember correctly, when we were going back, let's just go back to before the presidential election. Do y'all remember all the shenanigans and craziness that went on during that time period? I know that I remember sitting through a 6-hour joint Privileges and Elections meeting with the House. It was the House and the Senate. And we listened to registrar after registrar after registrar talking about their complaints of the IT system that kept going down on them. And there was concern, would the poll books be ready on Election Day? I mean, there was a lot going on. We had in the Harrisonburg situation with a JMU student was basically registering dead folks to vote, and so we're trying to be proactive for the next election. And so we're introducing a couple bills that are going to help with that. And those I've been talking to our registrar, Larry Hakey, about this bill, and also Delegate Buddy Fowler. So let me tell you a couple of those. First of all, I would like to introduce a bill, absentee voting. That, you know, right now we have a photo ID law in Virginia if you go to the polls and vote, but there isn't any for absentee voting. I'd like to see that happen because there's an opportunity for fraud there. This is a companion to Delegate Buddy Fowler's bill in the House. It requires any voter submitting an application for an absentee ballot by mail or by electronic or telephone or fax device, you name it, to submit with his application a copy one of the forms of identification acceptable under current law. The law also requires any voter to submit a copy of such identification with his voted absentee ballot. Now, this isn't perfect, but it's better than what we have now. And the bill exempts military and overseas voters and persons with a disability from these requirements. The bill contains technical amendments as well. So I really want to thank State Board of Elections official Clarabelle Wheeler, who I spoke to quite a bit on the weeks upcoming to the federal election, and her help in identifying some key issues that we had. There's another bill, Senate Bill 871, that would require third-party voter registration. Now you say, what is that? This is a companion bill, once again, to Delegate Buddy Fowler's bill in the House. And what does this do? So we had a situation where basically third-party agencies or organizations were hiring kids and paying them based on how many applications they submitted. So this bill requires any individual or organization that will be distributing and collecting voter registration applications to register as a third-party registration group with the Department of Elections, and prior to engaging in any voter registration activities. The bill requires volunteers and employees of the third-party registration groups to register with the department. The department is required to issue a unique identification number to each third-party registration group, and each group shall assign its volunteers and employees a separate identification number. The bill requires these identification numbers to be included on voter registration applications collected by third-party registration groups, and to keep all the accounting and record-containing information about all the volunteers and employees engaging in those activities. Right now, it's free for all, right? The bill prohibits the compensation of volunteers and employees on a per application basis. We've got to do something to fix this problem because it's creating fraud situations for us, and we really do want to avoid that. When we come back, I'm going to talk to you about what I think we need to do is to change the way we are selecting our electors for president and vice president. And we're going to talk about what we need to do to fix that problem and make it more representative. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Welcome back to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. And I'm Senator Chase on WNTW 820 AM The Answer. And we are discussing different bills that I'll be introducing this coming 2017 General Assembly session. We're on the last bill that I'm going to be able to talk about today, and that's Senate Bill 837, which basically has to do with how we select our electoral college. Now, I've gotten a lot of calls from people saying, "Hey, let's go with a popular vote. Let's scrap the electoral college. Let's go purely by the population." And initially I thought, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But then I started doing my research and figured out exactly why we may not want to do that, actually, and how the wise our founding fathers were. If we went strictly by the popular vote, where would the candidates for president go to campaign? They go to New York, California, and Texas. And all their issues would revolve around the urban or the most populous cities. So, I don't think that we want to go in that direction. I still like the Electoral College, but I think some tweaks would be appropriate. And I was looking at, what are they doing in other states? Well, Maine and Nebraska has something that I thought would look pretty good to me. So Virginia has 13 electoral votes. And what I'm thinking is, if we have 11 congressional districts, which, as you know, your congressional districts are determined by your popular vote. And that's just simplifying a little bit, but it does take into account the population. So if you get one electoral vote for every congressional district, and then the 2 extra at-large votes would be determined by the popular vote, I think that's going to give us what we're looking for. And so it's going to be split. Like Maine, take a look at Maine, take a look at Nebraska. They're already doing this there. And it revises the process by which the Commonwealth's electoral votes are allocated among the slates of presidential electors. The bill provides that a voter will vote for 2 electors for the Commonwealth at large and 1 elector for the congressional district in which he is qualified to vote. So the candidates for president and vice president receiving the highest number of votes cast statewide are allocated the 2 electoral votes for the Commonwealth at large. Does that make sense? So I tell you what, I know that we're wrapping up. We've got like 2 minutes on the show, but I really want to encourage you, go to my website, chaseforsenate.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Senator Amanda Chase. Feel free to add your comments there. The whole list, all my bills are actually on my website, and we'll be talking about those on Facebook. And I really do want feedback from you all. Most of these are generated, like I said, most of these bills are ideas that you all have given me, and so I'm running with them. If I think it has some merit to it, then I'm going to see what we can do here. But I do want your feedback, and I welcome your feedback. I'll be back next week, my last week before session, and Martha Bonetta is going to be here co-hosting the show with me, so tune in next week. WNTW Radio, The Answer.